Welcome to another episode of Soap Thing Thoughts. Joining me today is Don Youngner of Wet the Face. Welcome to the Soap Thing Project. How are you doing this weekend?
I'm doing fine. Doing good. How about you, Ben?
I'm doing swell. I know you're a busy man, so I really sincerely appreciate your time. And you don't make a lot of public appearances outside of your own channel, so I'm sure your supporters will really
Yeah.
be excited about this.
Well, yeah, I don't make too many things like this, but I'm happy to do it for you, Ben.
So I got to ask, and I'm sure everybody's curious, how did Wet the Face get started? My biggest question is why and how?
Well, how was like a lot of people were looking into a cheaper way to shave and so on, which led me to the groups, which led me to starting my own group uh, called Wet the Face. And then from there, I was curious in doing things with straight razors, which led to more knowledge of, well, how do I create shaving soap? How do I do this? And I was I approached a artisan, and that person taught me over the course of like a year what how was shaving soap made, how what makes a good shaving soap, how do you make an aftershave, this kind of thing. And I was hesitant to start because I didn't think, I could do it. And the person pushed me and said, if you don't do this, you're never going to do it. So I created my first soap. I sent it out to a lot of people. They said, this is very good. And then that's when I started Wet the Face store.
Right.
And from there, here we are 8 years later.
Wow. So you've been in business for 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years later. I
So,
started with 4 soaps. I have over 40 now.
wow. So you didn't just kind of go on the internet and just kind of pick a shaving soap base off of there and kind of tweak it a little bit around the
Oh,
edges to make it your own. You actually had an artisan that came before you that was nice enough to pass along techniques and trade secrets and things
yeah.
like that.
They I was taught what makes a good shaving soap work, what ingredients, you know, was in what you need to incorporate into a shaving soap that actually made it work well.
Right.
And there were a lot of trial and errors. This, like I said, it took over a year. This person was not giving me a recipe, but allowing me to express myself within, within that recipe. Is this good? Is that bad? Do I take this oil and put it in? What happens? And it was a great experience, and I cherish the relationship that I have with this person, and this person is still an artisan out there today. So I'm not going to mention this person's name
No, of course not.
because
I wouldn't ask you to do
yeah,
that.
yeah, but well, that's I learned from that, and I'm really thankful that this person did this for me. It started me off in this side business that I have, and I'm an IT guy. That's my main bread and butter. But as I retired, I thought, well, maybe I can start this, and by the time I retire, this might keep me going, financially as well.
Right.
And so far, it's been very good.
So, admittedly, I kind of had to drop what I was doing to get here for you, but I got kind of a messy table in front of me, but I do happen to have one of yours sitting right here, and this one is Nirvana.
Yeah, that's a great soap.
So this is the second tub of this I bought from you. I managed to neutralize the first one, and this is quite an ambery fragrance, if I
Yes,
do say so myself. The first two I bought from you were Nirvana and Taboo.
yes,
One of the things I noticed about your soaps right away was I think they're pretty much unbeatable in terms of ease of use. It is so easy to make a lather with it.
yeah, yes. They're you touch water to it, that's about it, man.
Right.
You don't have to do anything magical.
So was that by design? Was that always your
Yes.
intention, or did it just kind of
Yep.
shake out that way?
No, that was my design. I wanted to have something that was easy to do. Now, also, it's not a hard soap, and it's not. It's, I guess you would call it. Some people call it a cream. Some
Right.
people call it a crope or whatever. Whatever you want to call it. It's very pliable, so you could just use your finger. If you do bowl lathers like I do, you could just place it right into the bottom of the bowl. And as soon as you load up a brush of water, you empty it out, and then you could just whip it up, and it comes
Right.
up. I mean, it's no effort whatsoever. And I think it makes the wet shaving experience more enjoyable when you're not fighting with this kind of thing.
Right. It doesn't. It shouldn't be tedious. Like this should be
No,
easy to do.
you shouldn't have to go to the wet shaving college to learn how to
Right.
bowl lather or
Right.
anything.
No, you're absolutely right. So, when you're getting ready to make a new scent, what exactly compels you or motivates you to make it? Like, do you just kind of want people to experience what you like, or what gives you the idea to make a certain scent?
Well, sometimes it's based on design. I'll be thinking of something I want to go into, like for instance, this is Dirty Girls, right?
Hmm.
So this is brand new for today. Actually, I've just released this, and I have a number of scents that I want to attach to each particular girl that I'm going to feature. The first
Okay.
one is Mary, who is my wife is named Mary, so that was the first name I could think of. But this one I was told has the scent of Sauvage, right? So it's very close to Sauvage. I don't know how close it is, but because I can say it is, and then the next person says it's nothing like it.
Right.
So scents are very, they're
Subjective.
it's to the subject, it's to the individual. So um yeah, so it sometimes it starts off with an idea for a graphic, and other times it's I want to make something like Old Spice,
Right.
right? So then and I know, Ben, that we discussed on that particular endeavor. I showed you what I was working on with Old Spice, and the graphic. You said I'm not digging it, right? So I went back to the drawing board, and then I redid it, and then you said, yeah, this is kind of like what I would buy an Old Spice for. This
Right.
graphic. Yeah, if you remember that.
No,
I mean, we
I do
also,
remember that, and
yeah,
I appreciate the courtesy. You're not the only one that comes to me offline with just like, hey, what do you think of this? And the fact that people
right.
are willing to come to me with those kind of questions is very humbling. And you'd be surprised the kind of the kind of secrets I know from people that are trying to do something, and sometimes it ends up a finished product, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Now I'll say it out loud here. I was working on something for Top Gun, if you remember.
mhm.
Never that, and I used you to tell me what, all your knowledge of the military. What do I need to put on this label? Although the product never came out, I still have that in the wings. So it might come out someday, but I use your expertise to create the image of that whole entire label. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can talk more about that if you want, but basically you were doing a Top Gun themed label, and I
yes,
was like, you have an Air Force airplane on there. If you release that with that airplane on there, you're gonna get laughed out of the room.
yeah, and that
So
was that was like that information is gold. I don't know. I have no idea. That's why I needed your expertise, Ben.
so but again, I appreciate that courtesy. Now, I got another question for you. Have you ever just like been walking down the street and you get a whiff of something and you're like, hmm, I think I want to take that back and see if I can make that into something. Has it ever been
Sure.
that organic?
Yeah. Yeah. I work in New York, and there's a lot of smells in New York.
Hmm.
But sometimes you pass someone and they're wearing a cologne, and you're like, man, that would be a great soap, you know. And I could say, hey, what are you wearing? That's great. And other times you don't want to bother these people
Right.
walking down. But yes, it does happen sometimes like that. It doesn't happen as often as if I have an idea that I want to pursue and go into that direction. But yeah, sometimes it does happen like you say.
Right. I think a lot of artisans are like that, where they have an idea for a label, and so they make this really
Hmm.
nice label, and then they're like, well, now I got to figure out what to make it smell like.
Yes. Yeah.
So
It
I
happens a lot like that.
I would almost think it would be easier to develop a scent that you like the smell of, and then figure out what to make it look like. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yes.
Maybe somebody can put it in the comments. What's the easier process? But what's the what's the simplest and easiest soap you ever released? Where it was just like, I know exactly what I want it to smell like. I know exactly what I want it to look like, and
I
X
think
amount
it
of weeks
was
later,
the
it was done.
I think it was four the four first shaving soaps that I released, which were barbershop and tobacco types of offerings. They were the
Right.
easiest because they were the most common. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with the label and with the scent. They were pretty much all in my mind, just laid out. Then as time goes on, with each release of something new, you struggle more and more because you got to go into a direction that you may not have been in before, you know.
Right.
So
Uh,
it's tougher.
Blood orange is a big one. I know that you got a lot of positive attention about the label on
Yes.
that one. How did that kind of shake out?
Yeah, well, I actually I actually had the scent in mind before I created the label on that.
Okay.
So yeah, and then I never really had um a Halloween kind of themed shaving soap or anything. So I wanted to make it like a dual purpose shaving soap, something that's all year round but can be used on those kinds of days. So that's where the label came in, where I wanted to make it a little more sinister, a little more horror kind of
Right.
thing. And I think it worked out good.
Yeah, I think
The-
people really liked that one.
yeah, yeah.
Another one that I
And
have
look,
really fun.
we actually worked on something again. We worked on something that you had been passionate about.
Right.
Uh, it was a scent that your dad gave you when you were a young lad,
Hmm.
and in we called it. I called it what did I call it? Infinity,
Hmm.
right? And what was the actual um, name of the
It was a inspired by Calvin Klein Eternity.
eternity? Yes. So we had the scent.
Hmm.
We knew exactly what we wanted to do with that because I sent you like a lot of different variations, and you picked out the one that was as closest as you thought it was. So
Right.
that's the one we used. And then we went back and forth with the design of the label.
Right.
You suggested using the actual font of what they were using for the perfume, so that's what we did, and it worked out quite well. I did the infinity logo, the infinity symbol, and I made that like the cornerstone of that particular shaving soap. So I think it really worked out well.
Right. Yeah, and I appreciate you
And
working
it's
me with
sold out already. It's
really.
sold out. Yeah. I
That
have to
that's
make
good.
more.
I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm glad my first
Yeah.
collaborative situation wasn't a dud. So that
No,
that's
it was good.
that's good to
It was
hear.
good. It was
Uh,
very good.
I also got to bring up that on your YouTube channel, you are an artisan that sells your own products, but you also
Yeah.
have no problem at all reviewing products from practically everybody else.
Yeah.
I can't think of another artisan that has the audacity to do that. Can you talk about exactly why you do that?
I don't know why. It's really it's not say beneficial for my own product, but I just love doing it. I love getting something new and saying, this is crap or this is really good. You should give it a try.
Right,
I'm very honest, and I always tell people up front, hey, this artisan sent me this, but I'm gonna talk about it as freely as possible and truthfully as possible what I think of it. And there are some times that I don't agree with how great the artisan tells me this product is, but there are other times where it's really a great thing. I like to share the knowledge and share my experience. And there's so much out there that I wish I had more reviews to do. I really do. I like doing. I like
right.
doing.
I remember one. It was the Duke Cannon hot shave where you didn't even do the shave. You were just like, I'm getting this off my face. This stuff is horrible.
Yeah, yeah. There's some really bad stuff out there,
Yeah,
which I just give like an epic fail.
yeah,
And
and you would think with all we've learned, like, why is there still just like this epic fail, two thumbs down, just crud out there? You would
yeah,
think that would be hard to do with all the cumulative knowledge we've all learned, but there's
yeah.
stuff like that out there.
I think what I've learned some of these fly by night companies do is they buy OEM products, right? So they'll get a gel from a manufacturer and they'll stick their label on it, and they go, well, look at all the wet shaving stuff that's out there. I'm going to make some money. I'll just put this out there and people are going to buy it. And that has been all my epic fails so far, that it's the Me Too kind of thing where it just doesn't turn out the way they think it's going to be, because you have to have a product that actually works. you
Yeah,
know I mean, and some of these gel, like most of them were gels, like they turn into foam or they don't turn into foam or whatever. Those are just crap.
yeah, yeah. I think there's some truth to that where they're just taking off the shelf products that's made by this super soap maker. Like for example, I know that a lot of the British soaps are made by all the same soap maker, and then they're just scented to specifications of each of the like Tobs and True Fit and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So I can see how these big corporate, you know, grooming product retailers would have something made up that just comes from a grab bin of different recipes, and then they probably don't even really means test it that well to
right.
it. I mean, I think somebody can correct me in the comments if they think I'm wrong, but I would think that's the whole purpose of artisan products, is that they're supposed to be better. They're supposed to have effort
Yes.
put into it, and
Yeah.
time and passion to a degree, and they're supposed to have
Yeah.
good ingredients, right?
Right.
So
Yes, that's what I was going to add, but you already added it in. You seek out artisan formulas because of the ingredients. There's no parabens. There might be, the best sourced ingredients that artisan can get, which is what I do. When I started out, I didn't have a lot of money, so I had to buy ingredients that I could afford, right? But as time went on, I bought better sourced cocoa butter and all kinds of things, which now the level of my soaps are really high. So you know, you sometimes get a refresh of a formula, and that's what happens. Artisans becoming more popular, they can afford better things. They may take another option that they couldn't afford before. They'll stick it into the soap. They see how it performs, and now it's version 2.0.
right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. So I know
Yeah.
you've got the Dirty Girls series that's
Yeah.
starting to gain steam. Do you want to talk about what is maybe coming down the road with that?
Yeah, well, I have so this is the first one here, like I said, and there are two more in the series, which if it's successful, there'll be more. Um, but these are all different jobs. That this was test pilot. Mechanic is another one. Riveter, of like, Rosie the Riveter, that would be another. And all these different jobs were taken up by women. So because there were no men to do these jobs, so they did them. And I thought this is a good opportunity with Memorial Day, which was what I wanted to hit with this, but I was a couple of days late because when I send out my labels to get done, they screw them up 3 times in a row. So
Goodness.
I wouldn't accept them, and they redid them 3 times. So finally, they got them good and they're perfect. So these are the labels that we're using, and I'm hoping that the next 2 releases in the series, I don't have to go through that crap, because it was agonizing. Every time I would get the envelope, I'd rip it open. I'm like, oh, I have to go back to the drawing board.
So what exactly is wrong with them? They're just like crooked or like not perfectly
The
centered.
coloring was wrong.
Really?
Yeah,
That's a
it was
thing?
wrong.
Like I can understand it be like
Oh, yeah.
misaligned, but like having color issues?
Yeah, there was some color issues, and they would say, well, show me the original, and I'd show them what I created on the computer, and then they would compare it, and I'd scan what they gave me. I said, okay, these two things, do you see any difference? Because I do. And they're like, oh, we're gonna redo it. And third time was a charm, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to badmouth people, but there are some things where it's just like, how does this go unnoticed? You
And
know,
this is a good company.
right. I mean,
Where I get my label from, they do a good job, but they just screwed up on this one. Why? I have no idea.
right,
Now, there are some, I like to put a black like band sometimes around the outside of the label. And the last company that I used for doing these labels, they just kind of never looked at the proof that I approved. So in these places, you go online, you submit your product, you align it the way you want it to look, you get a PDF for verification, you look at it, and yeah, this is what I want. So this is what I'm expecting. And then when it comes back, the band is not small, but it's very thick. And you're like, that's not what I approved. And they have their million excuses. So that's
right.
why, and that was Vistaprint, by the way. So I left them and I went to this new one, and they are so far very good. And then when they came to this problem with color, they really jumped on helping me, but it took them a couple of times to do it. They were
Right.
responsive, but still they made a mistake.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I should probably uh make a caveat that whether it comes to like big businesses that are making like tens of thousands of labels a day, or whether it's a really big artisan that is selling a lot of products, it doesn't matter. Any business that's got honest people in it, that's
Yeah.
selling a lot of products, they have to put their eyes on so many things a day that
Oh, yeah.
at a certain point, their attention span runs out of gas. So you're going to
Yeah. Yeah.
have some abnormalities. Like I've had shaving soaps where the labels, the side labels around the band around the
Come right
side of the
off.
tub wasn't on there perfectly straight. And it's just like in I've had people complain about it. It's just like, do you have an idea how many times they're doing that in a day? They probably put that on 180 some odd
Yeah.
soaps in the space of
Yeah.
a
I
couple
can't imagine
hours.
what Sterling goes through.
Oh
You know,
goodness.
yeah. Can you imagine? I mean, his labels, they're, he's got a formula for his label. And basically what he does is just changes the name and maybe a couple of other things.
Right.
That makes it very easy for him to create a new something new and get it out, right? Mine are pretty much very graphic orientated, like they have a lot of things going on in them. So it's not as easy for me. My the creative there is a longer period of time than his.
Right.
And I have to look out for a lot of different things where he has it's white and green and black. Those are his kind of like his colors.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, it's good that you finally got that sorted out. One other thing I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about with you. This might be the last thing we talk about, but I know have been using your 3D printer a lot to make like aftershave caddies and shaving soap
Yeah.
holders and things like that. I actually really like the shaving soap holders because if you got like a lot of soap that's kind of like hanging on a shelf, you can put them on there, and then
Yeah.
they fit yours perfectly. But like a more garden variety shaving soap is a little bit bigger, but they'll still kind of fit on there pretty okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
where
They're really
where
meant for mine.
right? No, that's fine. Um, but I just wanted to point that out because if you're trying to find clever storage solutions for your shaving soap pucks, you might consider talking to this guy and getting one of those shaving soap holders. They should be on his website.
Yeah.
Do you have anything coming in the future that is hardware related like that, like 3D printed stuff?
Yeah. So let me shout out to Chuck LaChance because he's the guy who created the aftershave wall mounted rack, the stand that holds five. I created the flat version of the soap holder. That all came about because I needed a solution to hold the shaving soaps I use for doing samples.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the little caddy that I have, I think it's right here. This little caddy, that's a just an idea that I had for helping me sort out all the aftershaves that
Right.
I have to pick, right? So I can put four in one of these trays, and then I have a whole entire shelf just with aftershaves all over. So when an order comes in, I just pick it up and that's it. So this I made available if anybody wanted it. And it seemed to sell very well. But then that's when I met Chuck, and Chuck was like, I made these things for you. You can use them. I'm not charging you anything for the design or anything. He was just a really incredible engineer. So I thanked him for that. And to answer your question, yeah, we're going to have a lot more stuff. I'm going to involve Chuck because he's just, he's an engineer. So if I say, hey, I'm thinking about, doing something like this, he'll do it. Now, he actually created, I should say, a vertical tub holder where it's like a tube.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the bottom is a place where you just kind of like slip out the next shaving soap you want to use in a rotation. And you just keep doing this kind of thing
Oh, that's
where you
clever.
put it. Yeah, it's very clever. But I couldn't get my 3D printer at the time to make it correctly where I could sell it. So
Right.
I had to buy, I had to adjust all that stuff first and then do it. And of course, I don't know if anybody is into 3D printing, but these things take time to print. Just this alone takes hours and hours to print. So the the wall rack is like a day, almost a day of printing just to make one. So it's a time consuming process.
Right. Isn't
So
it basically
yeah,
injection molded? Like, doesn't it get pretty hot when it's being made?
yeah. So it's a spool of filament, and then that goes into like they call it a hot end, and it comes out like a stream, and it moves in the direction with the flow of that stream, creating the product and moving up as it's creating the product. And I was amazed at 3D printing when it first came out. I have two in the background, but I have others that are not being used,
Right.
And I artillery is the one that I really like. That's the 3D printer that I recommend. I actually did a YouTube video on that when I first got it, and it was something that I could use for production, and that's what it's not like a hobby in a sense of I need reliability.
Right.
So that was the most reliable.
Can it do two things at once, or do you have to print one item at a time?
No, whatever you could fit on the bed, so that the bed is 300 millimeters by 300. So if you can fit something on that bed, then it will print it all. But like I also created the bar soap molds, and I have instead of plastic filament that's stiff, it's a flexible filament that I use, and that takes up the entire plate. So I can only do one of those at a time.
Right.
And yeah, so
It sounds like you're having a lot of fun tinkering with this thing and experimenting with
yeah,
new things.
yes. And I use a very simple online application which is free to use. It's called Tinkercad. So if anybody's interested they can just go Google Tinkercad, and they can kind of fool around with the on how it's used, and then you can, if you're interested in doing a 3D, getting a 3D printer, well, those are all the tools that you need.
Right. That's awesome. Well, let's start to close this video out. Why don't we do the elevator speech? So, if you got an elevator with somebody who never met you, didn't know a thing about you, and you had to explain your company in 30 seconds, what would you say?
I would say that my company, I would say to them, well, I have a company that makes shaving soap products. It's an artisan owned company making shaving soap. They have to shave bombs. I mean, pretty much that's what I do. It's a very simple, very straightforward explanation of what it is.
Right.
And I always would say, go to Wet the Face and take a look.
You just planted a thought inside my head. Before we get out of here, where did the idea of wet the face come from? Was that always what you were going to call it, or did it have different beta names and that's what you came up with? How did that come about?
So I'm driving in my car, and I had to think of a name. And as I'm waiting there, I'm like, what the fuck? What am I going to call this? And I went, and I said, what the, and I like, okay. What the face? That gives me the letters, WTF. And it also gives me the name of the company. I said, that's perfect. Wet the face.
Right.
So it was and in the beginning, I used WTF on a lot of the labels. And I thought it was pretty funny and everybody got the joke.
Right.
And then I started to not always put it on the label. And in fact, I don't think I've put it on the label for a while, but that was the thing. It
Right.
was to get people to kind of recognize it. And I do have it on the shaving bowl
Right.
and and the stuff because I think it's fun and it still represents the name brand. So
Yeah. Oh, that's
that's
another
where it goes.
thing. Don's got pottery shaving bowls to get made for him occasionally, so those tend to sell out right away, and then they take a while to come
Yeah.
back in stock because he has a a ceramics guy make those for him. So whenever
Yes.
those come in stock, if you're looking for a bowl, make sure you pay attention to what Don's doing.
Yeah, he's in fact he just emailed me and you can hear some of the bings and dings going off. I believe he's telling me that he's pretty close to sending them to me now. So they should be in stock probably within a week, you know.
That's good.
So that's good. Yeah. Alfred
Let's
is his name.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Alfred is his name. He's a great artisan. He's got his own pottery business. And I reached out to him a while ago and we've been doing this for a while, but I think he's having a tough time trying to accommodate my stuff, you know.
Right.
He even says,
he's a
yeah,
little
he
too
even
popular
says that
for his
it's
britches at the moment.
yeah, I think he has a tough time trying to like concentrate on getting my stuff done as opposed to some of the other things that he's doing. And he has a full-time job too. So
Right.
it's tough. It's tough.
Well, if you have a chance to get one of the wet the face bowls, they're pretty good quality. So definitely be on the lookout for those. Well, Don, what do you have for parting words of wisdom for new shavers or seasoned shavers? What have you learned in the time you've been doing this?
uh I learned that you could take people's advice, but not everybody not everybody's right. So do things on your own, experiment with how you want things done. When I do a video, the criticisms I get on how much soap I'm putting in a bowl, on how fast I'm whipping it up. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's laughable.
Yeah,
Everyone should be able to do their own thing. And that's what I'm saying to them. Do your own thing. If it works for you, great. If not, if you want to seek out someone else's technique, ask them. But don't have someone push their technique on you, push the way that they do things. Do it yourself.
it's amazing how people will look at the way that you make a lather on your videos and have the audacity to gripe and complain, oh, you're using too much soap. But then
Yeah.
I have a similar top down shot of the lathering process. And whenever I use too much soap, nobody says a word about it. I think just because you've got so much more eye traffic coming and going that I think it's one of those things where the bigger the planet is, the more gravity it has, and so you're just
Yeah.
attracting all the stuff, and not all the stuff is positive. So that's just
Yeah.
the nature of the beast. But yeah,
Yeah. It
it's
comes
it's
with the
just like
territory.
dude, what do you care? It's like it's his stuff. He owns it. He bought it. What does it matter if he wants to use way more than he
And
needs to?
plus, do they realize, do they ever stop and realize how much actual shaving soap I have in this room? And they're telling me I'm using too much. I could never use all this in my lifetime.
Yeah, but probably a metric crap ton. So at that point, what does it matter?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's some people just haters gotta hate. That's just
Yep.
part of the human
Exactly.
condition.
Yep. You got that
Well,
right.
well, Don, I want to thank you sincerely for coming on to the show and talking about your brand. I will go ahead and put all the information you need about Don Youngner in the description of
Thank
the video. and I will have his card towards the beginning of my video. So if you want to fast forward around to the beginning and click on his card up at the top of the screen, you can access his YouTube channel that way, or it'll be in the description. And yeah, definitely check out his products, and hopefully, Don, you are in this business for quite a few more years.
I hope so.
Let's hope. So. All right, I want to thank everybody for watching. This is Soap Thing telling you, shave like you mean it. Thanks for watching.
Good night, Ben.